It is a great honor for me to speak about George Garnet in front of this audience. At the same time, I am in an uneasy position. I knew George Garnet shortly. We only met when his life was nearing its end, and I saw him just a few times. That's why I am not able to sum up his creative and personal life. And I hope other people will do that because there is so much to speak about. Still, I am happy for this opportunity because our meeting meant a lot to me, and I dare say George Garnet is my friend. We met more than 1 year ago. I was in New York for a completely different reason. When I was asked by the editors of our monthly to make a short interview with George on the occasion of the Czech edition of a book of his. At the time, I didn't know that this meeting would become one of the key moments of my New York stay. That for me, the city itself would become forever connected with his personality. The interview was made, but our relationship was far from finished. I saw George several more times. Although I wanted to, I wasn't able to tell him much, but I listened to him. He told me a lot of things about himself and his life, about New York, about politics. Yes, politics. George's life was a political one. He delighted in commenting on politics, and as he was rather prudent and skeptical by nature, he was rarely mistaken in his judgments. In this context, I remember one story George told me. It was about himself arguing with Ferdinand Peroutka. About politics, of course. Peroutka told him, "I am much more naive than you." And he added, "But I am like this by purpose." I am telling you that because, as I'm thinking about it now, one of the reasons why I loved going to see George while I was in New York was that I wanted to argue with him. George's skeptical realism fascinated me. But as I'm quite naive too, and probably much closer to Perotka's purposeful simplicity, I possibly wanted to take over his stance and carry on with the argument these two men once had. Of course, it was futile, so at least I listened to him. Sometimes mouth agape, sometimes desperately trying to break in, but always fascinated. However, this surely isn't the main reason why I used to see George so often, why I listened to him, thought about him so much, why I considered him my friend and one of the persons I most admired. Sure, it's nearly impossible to find the one reason for such a thing. There are always many. And when you think you found it, it's even more difficult to put it into words. But maybe I did find it. I found it in my notes from that time. After one of our meetings, I wrote in my diary, "He might be too much prudent, too much skeptical, but precisely thanks to this, he has always been able to assess his situation and achieve an unheard of level of introspection, a kind of inner wisdom. Old people sometimes tend to be self-centered and don't heed the world around that much, but not him. He has always been incredibly conscious of himself, his surroundings, and his position in the world. However simple and modest it sounds, I am convinced it is actually the highest thing one can ever achieve in life. That's it. George was wise, and I admired his wisdom. This is what I wanted to tell you about George. To him, I'd like to tell, thank you, George, and happy journey.